So for the video today, we're going to be talking about graphing points. But before we start actually talking about graphing points, I wanted to go over with you the aspects of a coordinate plane. A coordinate plane is what you see right here on the thing. There are a couple of things that we want to talk about. The first thing is your horizontal axis, this one that's going straight across this way. This is your x-axis. Okay, and this vertical axis, the one going up and down here at the center, this is your y-axis. And it's very important that you remember the difference between these two. Again, x is left and right, y is up or down. This is going to come into play when we start graphing points. This point right here in the center where the two axes meet each other is called the origin. And it is the point 0, 0. So basically we're not moving left or right or up or down. And whenever we graph a point, we always graph our point starting at the origin and then using the values in our point to decide where we go. It's kind of like giving directions in a city where everything's in blocks. Also, I wanted to talk to you about, notice that the y-axis and the x-axis split our graph into 4 equal regions. These regions are called quadrants. We start in the upper right hand side. This is quadrant 1. Now the big thing about quadrant 1 is in order to be inside of quadrant 1, we have to from the origin go to the right, and all of these values to the right are always positive. So in quadrant 1 our x values are always positive. And then we also have to go up. So all of our values going up are also all positive. So every point that lives in this first quadrant has a positive x value and a positive y value. So for our next quadrant, we go in a counterclockwise, or we make a C. So this would be our second quadrant. Again, thinking about how to get into this quadrant, we would go to the left this time. Well, to the left on our x-axis, these are all negative numbers, so our x value would be a negative. And we're still moving up, so our y value would be positive. So every point that lives in this second quadrant has a negative x value and a positive y value. Continuing on, this quadrant down here is quadrant 3. In order to get into this quadrant, we would need to go to the left. Again, these are all negative values to the left on x, and then we would go down. So these would also be all negative values for our y. So every point in our third quadrant has a negative x and a negative y. Our last quadrant over here is quadrant number 4. This quadrant we're looking at going to the right, so all of these values are positive, and then going down, so all of these values are negative. So this would be a negative comma positive. Excuse me, a positive comma negative. So again, all x values are positive, all y values are negative. Now when we look at a point, or what we call an ordered pair, they have a very specific way that they are shown to us. They are in alphabetical order, always starting with x. So always starting with our x value, and our x value is always going to move us left or right. Again, if he is negative, that is left. If he is positive, that is right. And we always do this first. First move is your left or right with your x value when we're graphing a point. Your right value, or your y value, which is your second value of your point, this always either moves you up or down. Okay, so for up we would be positive, and for down we would move negative. So if our y value is positive, we go up. If our y value is negative, we go down, and this is always our second move. Okay, well, let's practice on graphing some points. So for our first example, we want to graph these 3 points right here with our A, B, and C, and we've got our graph here to the side. So we want to start with our A. Remember that this is our x value, this is our y value. So this particular point, since our x value is -2, is telling us we need to go to the left 2. Now notice that our y value is 0, so that means we're actually not going to move up or down. So when we graph this point, again starting at the origin, we're just going to go to the left 2, and then we're going to make a dot since our y value is 0 and we're not going to move up or down. So this would be our A, labeling it for, so we know which point's which when we're looking back. The next one we have here, we have -7 and -2. So again, this is our x, this is our y. So we're going to go left 7, and then we're going to go down 2. Again, starting from our origin, counting to the left 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then down 2. Notice that I don't make a mark until I've done both movements. I don't make a mark at -7 and then go down 2 and make another mark. So you count over to -7, down to -2, then draw your point and label it B. Okay, and for our last one here, again we've got that -5, so we're going to go to the left 5, that's our x value, but our y value is +6, so that means we are going to go up 6. So starting at, again, the origin, counting over to -5, so 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, making the dot after I've made both movements, labeling it with the letter C. So for the second half of this particular problem, we're actually going backwards. We want to start with the points on the graph and tell us what the x value and the y value is. And it's very similar to graphing. You're just going to be counting, again, starting at the origin, always counting your left and right first, and then counting your up and down. So here's my first point A, so I want to start at the origin and count over 1, 2, 3 until I'm directly underneath my A, so I know my x value is 3. It's a +3 since I moved to the right. And then I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, so my y value is also 3 and also positive. And that makes sense because if you remember when we talked about our quadrants, this point lies in quadrant 1, and quadrant 1, all of my x values are positive, all of my y values are positive. So I know that everything in here should be positive. So let's look at our point B. It's over here. So again, starting from the origin, we're going to count until we're underneath him. So 1, 2, 3. This time I moved 3, but I moved 3 to the left, so that is actually going to give me a -3. And then I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since I'm going up, that is a +5. Again, my B lies in my second quadrant. My second quadrant has negative x's and positive y's, so I know that I have my signs or my values right as far as the negative and positive go. My third point here, again, starting at the origin, I want to count over until I'm above it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6, and since I went to the left, again, that's -6. And then we're going down 1, 2, 3, 4. And since we went down, that is a -4. And again, this is lying in quadrant 3. If you'll remember earlier, quadrant 3, all of my values are both of my values for x and y are both negative. And again, both of my values for my point are both negative here. So I'm pretty sure that I have the right, at least the right signs for each one of these points. So in this section, we have 2 additional types of problems other than the graphing the points and then telling me what the coordinates of the points are, like we did in our previous example. In this one, we want to determine if the given point satisfies the line. Basically, you're wanting to know, does this point 2, 5, is it on this line? So the easiest way for us to do that is just to plug in the numbers and see if we get out a true statement. Remember, when we're looking at this, the 2 here, here's your x value, and the 5 here is your y, and you've been given this equation up at the top, 3x minus 2y, so you know you have an x and a y. So all we're going to do is take these 2 values and plug them into their corresponding variables in the equation. So we would have 3 times 2 minus 2 times 5, and we want to know, does that give us 8? So 3 times 2 is 6, 2 times 5 is 10. So 6 minus 10, that is going to be -4. And unfortunately, -4 does not equal 8, so our answer would be no. That's not a solution for this line. So part 2 is exactly the same thing, except now we have this point here, -1, +5. So this is our x value, this is our y value. Again, we're going to plug those in. I'm going to say 3 times -1 minus 2 times 5. And we want to know, does that give us 8? So again, multiplying, this is going to give us -3. -2 times 5 again is -10. That gives us -13. And again, -13 does not equal 8, so our answer would be no as well. And we will have some where they come out to be true. So if we come out and we have that 8 does equal 8, then that would be a yes. But the idea again is that we take whatever values they give us in our point, plug those into our x and y of our equation. If we come out with a true statement, then that would be a yes. If we come out with a false statement like we did in these two examples, then that would be a no.